They finally texted you after all that silence, after the cold distance, after the heartbreak, confusion, and endless nights wondering if they even cared. And now, here it is, a message out of nowhere. But before you reach for your phone, take a breath. Not every return deserves a welcome. Not every message carries meaning. Sometimes it's not love that draws them back. It's the quiet discomfort of no longer being needed. What you gave so freely, the comfort, the attention, the emotional safety, has now become a void they can no longer fill. And so they reach, not always to reconnect, but to reassert their place in your world. But you're not that man anymore. You are no longer living in the aftermath of their absence. You've built something far stronger in it. Peace. Not the kind that pleads to be seen or understood, but the kind that holds itself steady in silence. You've mourned, questioned, unraveled, and somewhere in the stillness, you were reborn. Piece by piece, wound by wound, you remembered how to stand without leaning. Now, here they are again, with words that are easy to send and hard to trust. I miss you. I've been thinking about you. But love is not a sentence. It's not a flash of nostalgia. It is presence, responsibility, and the courage to grow, not just reach. So before you respond, ask yourself a different question. Not, what do they want? But, what have I earned? Not, is this real? But is this right? Because this is your power shift. This is not a test of their sincerity. It's a test of your self-respect. Some messages are not beginnings. They are echoes. Echoes of a chapter already closed. And if you're tempted to reply, ask whether that reply honors who you've become, or who you used to be when you still believed love came dressed as confusion. If these words find a home in you today, like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station. What comes next is not just an analysis, but a guide. A steady, honest unraveling of why they reached out, what may truly lie beneath their timing, and how to respond like a man who protects his peace more than he entertains unfinished stories. 1. A message isn't a miracle. It's a moment. There's a moment that almost feels sacred. Your phone buzzes, your eyes scan the screen, and it's them. The name you haven't spoken in weeks, maybe months, the person who once meant everything, is now right there, pixelated and glowing. In that split second, your heart stumbles, your mind wants to race. For just a breath you wonder, is this it? Is this the moment everything changes? But pause, because a message is not a miracle. It's not a turning point. It's not a clean slate wrapped in good timing. It's just a moment. And not every moment deserves to be worshipped. Sometimes people don't text because they've transformed. They text because they remembered you exist. That's a massive difference. Curiosity is not clarity. Loneliness is not love. Nostalgia is not commitment. And none of these things equal growth. They may not be reaching out because they see your worth more clearly now. They may just be reaching back to see if you're still reachable. So don't mistake motion for meaning. Don't confuse a notification with a revelation. There's a longing in all of us to believe that people return because they've finally understood the weight of their absence. But the hard truth, most people don't come back to rebuild. They come back to re-experience something comforting, familiar, easy. And if you've always been the safe space, the emotional supplier, the soul that loved without asking too many questions, then your silence becomes deafening and your distance becomes a threat to their comfort. But comfort isn't change. It isn't healing. It isn't accountability. A changed person doesn't pop in and out of your life like a season. They don't send breadcrumb texts laced with ambiguity. They show up with consistency, not convenience. They say more than just, "I miss you." They say, "I've thought deeply about what happened. I understand where I went wrong, and this is what I've done to grow since then." Change is effort, it's courage, it's vulnerability in action, not vague outreach in the dark. So before your fingers move to respond, before you get swept up in what this could mean, stop and ask yourself honestly, is this growth, or is this just a ghost? Because ghosts don't come back to build. They come back to haunt. They stir up the memories. They reignite the emotional charge. But they don't stay long enough to offer anything real. And if you're not careful, you'll start telling yourself a story, one where their text is the first sentence in a new chapter. But in truth, it might be nothing more than an echo of an old one you've already survived. And your survival matters. The nights you spent in silence, the way you rebuilt your dignity, the mornings you woke up with swollen eyes but a stronger spine. That growth, your growth, is sacred. So don't hand it away to someone who only had to press a few buttons to make you question how far you've come. You're not obligated to respond just because they remembered you. You're not required to feel hope just because they appeared. You are not a story waiting to be reopened. You are a whole chapter that already closed itself with strength and clarity. Let the message be what it is, a flicker, but don't turn that flicker into fire. As Seneca wisely wrote, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. That text is not reality. It's not evidence of a new beginning. It's a test of your imagination, your patience, and your peace. And in the words of Epictetus, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So before you let their words write your next sentence, return to your center. The message is a moment. Your response is the meaning, and your silence is your power. 2. Just checking in is not the same as coming clean. You've seen it before. The message that slips in quietly, like a whisper in the night. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're okay. Or worse, the infamous, "I miss you," that shows up at 2 a.m., long after they've disappeared from your life, and even longer after they chose silence over clarity. At first glance, it seems thoughtful, almost tender, as if in some small way they care. But don't be fooled. That kind of message rarely comes from the depth of love. It comes from the shallows of ego. If someone truly cared about your well-being, they wouldn't have waited until silence became uncomfortable. They wouldn't reach out only when your absence began to echo louder than your presence ever did. They wouldn't check in without addressing the part where they checked out first. Because real care doesn't vanish with the daylight. It doesn't slip in and out based on convenience. It shows up with intention, with responsibility, with acknowledgement of the hurt they caused. But a vague message. That's not care, it's a probe, a subtle way of asking, "Do I still matter to you?" without having the courage to say, "I'm sorry I hurt you." And often, it's not about you at all. It's about them. Them wondering if they still have emotional access, if your heart's door is still unlocked, not because they want to walk through it, but because they want to know they could if they chose to. It's not reconnection, it's reassurance. Not an apology, but an ego stroke. A way to reinsert themselves into your mind without doing any of the real emotional work it takes to heal what they broke. So when that message arrives, your instinct might be to react. You might feel the urge to reply, to decode it, to read between the lines searching for meaning. But this isn't the time to respond. This is the time to reflect. Put your phone down, take a walk, sit in the quiet you've worked so hard to protect, and ask yourself with radical honesty, is this message bringing me peace? Or is it pressing on a wound I've already started to close? As Marcus Aurelius once said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That's the measure of sincerity. That's the measure of care. And if their words feel hollow, if they say little but stir much, then you already have your answer. Don't let a message without meaning undo the silence that rebuilt your strength. Don't let ego disguised as concern shake the foundation you've worked to fortify. And above all, remember this truth from Epictetus. You don't control what they send, but you do control what you make of it. So let them check in if they must. But before you check back, check in with yourself. 3. Silence is the arena where power is revealed. Silence often gets misunderstood. People see it as emptiness, avoidance, weakness. But anyone who's walked through heartbreak, abandonment, or betrayal knows better. Silence isn't passive. It's not the absence of sound. It's the presence of strength. It's the place where you finally meet yourself without distraction, without illusion, and without noise. When you chose not to respond, not to chase, not to fill the space with explanations or justifications, you weren't being weak. You were reclaiming your center. You were letting the dust settle so the truth could rise. Because when everything else fades away, when the attention, the reassurance, the messages stop coming, you're left with one thing, yourself. And that's where the real work begins. Your silence has likely said more than your words ever could. It's not that they miss you as a person. Often, they miss the role you played, the comfort you gave, the mirror you held up to their identity, the one that said, "You matter, you're wanted, you're still in control." But you've taken that mirror down, you've changed the frame, and now they're left with only their own reflection. That's when silence becomes threatening, when it no longer reflects what they want to see. This is why your silence matters. It's not just about them, it's about you. It's about holding the line when your old self would have broken it. It's about knowing that a return message, no matter how warm or nostalgic, doesn't erase the months of inner growth, the nights you stayed strong instead of reaching out, the days you learned to breathe on your own again. The real test is not whether they reach out. The real test is whether you betray the strength you've built just because they finally noticed your absence. Silence taught you something words never could. It taught you how to stand alone, how to anchor yourself in your own worth rather than in someone else's attention. Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." That applies to your silence too. If one message can shake your calm, if one text can undo your peace, they still own a piece of your mind. And you've come too far for that. Don't let a few sentimental words convince you to shrink back into the version of yourself that depended on validation to feel whole. You are no longer seeking permission to feel strong. You've earned that strength in the quiet. So when they reach out, see it for what it is. Not a sign to return, but a reflection of the silence that unsettled them. You've passed the storm. Don't step back into the rain just because someone remembered your name. Let your silence remain a sanctuary. Let it be the proof that you no longer need to speak to be powerful. 4. Real love is accountable, not ambiguous. There's a strange kind of ache that comes when someone you once loved says something sweet. They might bring up a moment from your past, a memory that still lingers in the corners of your heart. Maybe it's how you made them laugh during ordinary evenings, or the way you used to calm their storms with a single glance. And for a second, it feels like something real is returning. But real love is never built on sentimental echoes alone. It isn't poetry wrapped in timing, it's truth wrapped in accountability. Anyone can say the right thing when they're lonely. Anyone can reach out when silence becomes too loud to bear. But not everyone is willing to do the hard things, the honest things, the healing things. Love, real love, is uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. It doesn't hide behind nostalgia or romantic lines. It shows up with clarity. It says, I know I hurt you, and I want to understand how. It asks questions instead of assuming forgiveness. It doesn't just remember a moment, it remembers the damage, the gaps, the ways it fell short, and it doesn't run from that. It faces it, with eyes open, with words that matter, with behavior that proves change. So when they text you something soft, something familiar, ask yourself not just how it feels, but what it lacks. Are they asking for your heart while ignoring the part they once broke? Are they pulling you close with memories, yet refusing to own their part in the pain? If they want your attention but won't offer accountability, that's not love. That's manipulation. It's a breadcrumb meant to stir emotion without offering nourishment. And you weren't made to live off crumbs. You've endured too much. You've spent nights turning pain into wisdom, confusion into boundaries. You've rebuilt your sense of self from the inside out. You no longer need love that only speaks. You need love that shows up, that stays, that repairs. As Marcus Aurelius said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Those words are the test, not just for them, but for you. Because the truth is, if you accept less than you deserve just to feel something again, you're betraying the part of you that worked so hard to heal. Love that doesn't own its mistakes is not love. It's comfort, it's nostalgia, it's easy emotion dressed as connection, but you didn't survive the storm to settle for softness without substance. So listen closely, not to their words, but to what those words avoid. If there's no accountability, no reflection, no effort to rebuild what was broken, then all they're doing is tapping the glass to see if your heart still responds. That's not partnership, that's possession. You are not here to feed someone's ego with your hope. You are here to protect your peace with your truth. Because real love isn't ambiguous, it's responsible, and it doesn't just return, it repairs. 5. Stop asking, why did they text? Start asking, what do I need? The moment that message arrives, the mind rushes in with questions. It's instinctual. You stare at your screen, and immediately the spiral begins. Why now? What does this mean? Do they still care? You search their words for hidden meaning, for clues, for signs that maybe, just maybe, there's something more behind the simplicity of what they wrote. But here's the truth most don't realize in that moment. Every one of those questions centers around them. And in doing so, you give them the spotlight. You hand over your emotional clarity to someone who may not even deserve access to your peace anymore. You turn inward, but not to understand yourself. You turn inward to predict them. It's time to take that power back, to stop obsessing over their motives and start reconnecting with your own. Instead of asking, why did they text? Ask yourself something far more important. What do I need right now? That question changes everything. It centers your voice in a space that was once dominated by theirs. It reminds you that you are not here to decode other people's mixed signals. You are here to protect your path, your growth, your alignment. You've already carried the weight of uncertainty once. Don't pick it up again just because someone who once left now wants to revisit the door they closed. When the message comes, pause. Not out of hesitation, but out of wisdom. Reflect. Does this message add to the man you've become, or does it threaten to pull you back into someone you've already outgrown? Are you tempted to reply because it aligns with your peace, or because a small part of you still wants closure, still wants to be chosen, still wants to prove something? Here's a powerful exercise when the urge hits. Write your reply, but don't send it. First, write from the voice of your past self, the one who might have replied too quickly, the one who needed validation, who wanted answers, who still believed that maybe this could mean more. Then pause and write again, but this time let your healed self speak. Let the version of you who has been through the storm and rebuilt from it have the final word. Maybe that reply is calm. Maybe it's nothing at all. Maybe silence is the most honest response you have. And when you place those two responses side by side, you'll see the contrast. More than that, you'll feel it. You'll feel the growth, the grounding, the difference between reacting and responding. Because you're no longer the man who waits for someone else to determine your worth. You're not here to chase clarity from people who once thrived on your confusion. You're here to move forward, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. So the next time the message appears, don't ask what it means about them. Ask what it means for you. What do you need? What do you deserve? And what serves the future you're building, not the past you've already survived? 6. You have nothing to prove anymore. The impulse to respond isn't always about the words on the screen. It's about the parts of you that still wish you could be seen, not just acknowledged, but understood. A voice inside you still wonders if maybe, just maybe, they'll finally realize how much you've grown, that they'll recognize the strength you had to build alone, that they'll say, "I was wrong about you." But the truth is, you don't need that, not anymore. You've already lived the proof. You've walked through nights filled with silence, fought off doubts that tried to convince you to beg for validation, and found your footing in the wreckage they left behind. You're not seeking a moment where they finally understand your worth, because that moment, it already happened within you. You are not an unfinished story waiting for their recognition to be complete. You are not a lesson they need to learn in order to validate your journey. You're not here to explain yourself, perform strength, or present your evolution like a resume waiting for approval. You are a complete man, even if they never acknowledge it. There's a kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself. It sits in stillness. It radiates through boundaries. It speaks louder in silence than in 1,000 declarations. That's the kind of power you've earned. So if the urge to explain rises, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to prove something or protect something? Because sometimes a response isn't about connection. It's about closure you think they can give you. But true closure doesn't come from convincing someone to see your worth. It comes from no longer needing them to. Let your peace be your proof. Let your distance be your statement. You've already lived the change. There's no need to narrate it for someone who never stayed long enough to witness the beginning of your transformation. And if they can't recognize the man you've become, it's not a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of their limitation, their inability to grow, to see, to rise to your level. And that too is something you no longer have to carry. You don't have to be seen to be valid. You don't need to be acknowledged to be real. You've already become who you were meant to be. And the man you are today? He doesn't prove. He simply lives. 7. The final test isn't the text. It's what you do next. Anyone can stay strong after the first message. It catches you off guard, but you manage to hold the line. You don't respond. You breathe through it. You remind yourself of all the work you've done to get here. But then comes the second text, and then the third. And maybe this time they say the words you've waited to hear. I'm sorry. That's when the real test begins. Because there's something deeply tempting about feeling wanted again. There's a strange comfort in knowing they regret losing you. And if you're not careful, that comfort will dress itself up as closure. You'll start to believe that maybe, just maybe, this is the redemption arc, the healing moment, the second chance your heart once begged for. But let's be honest with ourselves. You didn't crawl through the wreckage of that heartbreak just to turn around the moment someone remembers your name. You didn't fight through nights of silence, learn how to stand on your own, and rebuild your self-worth one broken piece at a time. just to hand it all back over because someone finally decided to show remorse. Yes, it feels good to be remembered, to be missed, to hear them say what they never could before. But the real power isn't in what they say. It's in what you do next. This is the moment where your growth is tested, not through pain, but through peace. Will you protect what you've earned, or will you sacrifice it just to feel connected to someone who once left you in pieces? Forgiveness doesn't require access. You can forgive them in your heart and still keep the door closed. You can wish them healing and still choose to keep walking without them. The presence of remorse is not the same as the presence of change. Real change is slow. It's steady. It requires accountability, not just apologies. And if they want a place in your life again, let them do more than send words. Let them live it. Let them prove it. Let them rebuild trust with consistency. Not emotion, not urgency, not timing, but action. But until then, the choice is yours. And it's not an easy one. Choosing not to respond may feel cold. It may even feel like you're throwing away something meaningful. But remember, what's truly meaningful will never ask you to compromise your healing to hold it again. This is your moment to reclaim full authorship of your life. You are no longer the version of yourself that waits by the phone. You're not the person who bends for a glimpse of love that once cost you your peace. You've outgrown the need to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. So when that text comes, and it likely will, pause. Not out of hesitation, but out of strength. Remember what you've built in their absence. The man you became when no one was watching. The calm you found after chaos. The clarity that only silence could give you. You don't owe them a response. You owe yourself the continuation of the peace you fought so hard to find. You are not who they left. You are who you rose to become. And that version of you, he knows when to open the door and when to walk away without ever looking back. Summary. If they finally texted you, let that speak for what it is. Not a grand gesture, but a ripple of absence catching up to them. They're feeling the void you used to fill so freely. But just because they remember what they once had, doesn't mean it's yours to give again. You've paid for your peace in full, with sleepless nights, questions that went unanswered, and the quiet work of rebuilding a man from the ground up. Brick by brick, day by day, you've created something stronger, steadier, more whole. You don't need to rush to fill their silence. You don't need to explain how far you've come. Your stillness already says it. Your silence already honors it. Growth doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself in the way you no longer fold for the same reasons you once did. So before you reply, breathe, reflect. Ask yourself not what they want, but what you've built, and whether their return supports it or threatens it. Because you are not the man they left behind. You've outgrown that version of yourself. And from this moment forward, your story is not waiting for anyone else to continue it. You write the next chapter. Let it be worthy of everything you've learned to protect. If this message reached something deep within you, let it be the reminder that you're not here to shrink, to chase, or to return to a version of yourself that played small for the comfort of others. You've come too far to turn back now. This isn't just healing. It's transformation. It's the quiet, steady rise of a man who knows his worth and no longer needs to explain it. Your story isn't closing, it's just beginning, and this time, you're the one holding the pen. If that speaks to you, subscribe to Stoic Station and keep building the life that no longer waits for permission.